So I'm going to do this video in portrait mode because of the way its orientation, the way it's got to be done. So what I'm going to do here, this is my safe. It is a Liberty Lincoln. It is a pretty large safe, pretty big. Thing I hate about it the most is it has a manual dial. And I am going to show you how to replace the manual dial with an electronic. What I'm replacing it with is a SecureRAM ProLogic Chrome electronic lock. I want to do a little disclaimer though first. Number one, if your safe is still under warranty, you need to make sure this is done by a locksmith or a professional because it may void your warranty. Number two, I'm going to go into something that's on these safes called a relocker or relocking pin. And if you screw with the relocker and you mess it up and it engages when the door is closed, you'll never get this safe open unless you call somebody to drill it out. The relocker is designed that if excess pressure is put on the lock, it triggers a bolt to drop down and prevents the lock from opening. Even if you've opened the combination and you've disengaged the bolt, the handle won't turn. I'll show you that once I get into this. Now this safe is packed full, so I'm gonna put something to cover most of my stuff. And it also has a light inside it and a dehumidifier, basically environmental controls inside it. So that's to keep everything from rusting, keep everything nice and dry. So I'm going to go ahead and open this thing up. I have to remove the door panel. Once I get the weapons I have on the door taken off and put away, then I'll show you how that's done. All right, so I got my door open. Here's my panel. I can only fit the phone so much. I wonder if I can back it up just a little bit. If I lift the legs up on I can back it up just a little. It's kind of difficult, but it's going to really make it easier to look at the lock. But we got to get the panel off. So on the panel, you have these little covers. One here, one here. There's one about halfway down, and one over here, and then one on each corner at the bottom. So the only tools you're going to need for this is a good thin flat head, a good Phillips head, and then you might need a needle nose pliers. I don't know yet, I haven't been in this lock, but most Sergeant Greenleafs, the actual dial screws into the back of the lock, and then there's a pin that locks it to the locking mechanism. So you have to pull that pin out. So, first thing you want to do then is pop this cover off right here. Pop all 6 of them off. And then down below, should have. Oh, no, you don't have any at the bottom. Good. I don't want to have to get to them, so there's 4. Then take your Phillips head. I would start with the ones in the middle first. So you should be able to pull this out. And it's rested in a groove at the bottom. So it kind of goes into a groove and then leans up. So that's why that's what keeps it up. So then you should be able to just lift it. This bar right here is your relocker. What this does is that when your safe is closed, if it's all the way, I don't want to I don't want to close it all. Well, I can. And this relocker engages, which all I'm going to do is I'm going to lift it and I'm going to put it off to the side. You don't want it engaged because this is the relocker plate. It's actually kind of loose. This is the relocker plate on the back of the lock. The new lock, which I'll show you, has one. And that keeps these pins. What happens is, if something happens to this lock, it's got a spring here, and it's being held by this plate. Somebody tries to drill through or penetrate this lock and breaks this plate. This lock comes down, and this heavy metal rod goes here, and that prevents you from opening. And the only way to get it out is somebody will have to drill through and break that rod, because while it's sitting in here, triggered, it'll block it. But once you can get through and cut it, then the pin will fall, and that'll allow you to get in. So, well, that's kind of sloppy. This Liberty gets a little sloppy with this. Pull this around and cut this extra drywall off. All right, so nice and clean. So the first thing we have to do is disengage this relocker by lifting it up and tilting it to the side. That keeps it from doing anything. Then take your Phillips head screwdriver. I'm going to take these two screws off. This is the relocker plate. I'm pretty comfortable doing this because when I was in the Navy, I used to work in ComSec, and when they came out with was it XO7 digital lock, I worked in a ComSec vault, and we had like 35 safes in it. So I had to replace all of the Sergeant Greenleaf locks with the XO7s. So we got the relocker plate off. We got the back off. If I can zoom in, I don't think this will zoom in. But if you look in the center of where the dial is, there's a pin. And that pin locks the dialing mechanism to the dial itself, the locking mechanism to the dial. So I need a pair of needle nose. What you have to do is you have to pull that pin out. It can be pretty tight. One way to do it is to grab a hold of the pin, line it up so it's directly up and down, because you can see it's unlocked right now. This has engaged the lock. So you can grab it like that, take your needle nose, squeeze real hard, and then push against the lock to try to pry it up. Don't want to break it. So let's try this. It's coming. Once it gets, the pin comes out and it's L-shaped. So this little part sits over top of the lock. Once you wiggle it out enough, you might be able to get a pair of pliers under it, or a screwdriver. And see if you can, I gotta get it some more, I don't have it open enough, or out enough. So you can grab it, wiggle, and pull at the same time. Now I got it out just enough. Then you can use this screwdriver to take it and pull it out. So there's the pin. Once you have the pin out, you can hold this and then turn the dial counterclockwise and keep turning it, and you'll see it'll go completely it will completely unscrew out. There it is. But you want to keep this locked. So, and you be careful not to pull this out. Leave everything intact. Now, you take your Phillips head screwdriver. You should have 4 screws, 1 in each corner. Take those screws out. See, now that I don't have the relocker plate on, this is what it would do. Come down, and then we'll block it. You won't be able to unlock it. So, bring the relocker up and make sure it's disengaged. Then, unscrew these 4 bolts. Hold the lock while you undo the last bolt. And then pull it out. So now, what the best thing to do right now is to take your old lock, hold this, stick the dial back in, turn it. Ooh, see, I don't want to do that. You gotta be careful with that. Then you want to turn it until the end is almost right flush with the end of the lock. And then find a pin spot. Any one of those pin spots will work. See, like I got right there, lined up. And then take your pin and put it back in the lock. You put it in the hole. Make sure, whoop, turn it a little bit. There we go. Put it in there. You don't have to do it tight, but I would tap it down a little bit because you're going to have to put the cover back on. So you want it at least so that you can get the cover on. Put the cover back on with your relocker plate. Put your screws back in. You got your 4 screws inside the plate, so you're inside the lock, so you don't have to worry about that. Now you might have to take this apart again. I forgot we got the dial on the front of the door. Don't need to be tight, just enough to hold everything in place. This thing was pretty loose, I'm surprised. Okay, that's that. Now we have to take the dial off the front. All right, here's our dial. Nothing but a flathead screwdriver and 2 screws. Go ahead and take them off. Now what you can do is you can open up that lock backing, put these extra screws inside, and then put the dial on, and that way you can have it all together. I'm going to keep it just in case, you know, I don't know, if something happens, I decide to upgrade safes, or I start having problems with electronic safe, then I can always go back to this. I'll keep my combo in it. That's it to take it apart. Now the new lock. This is the new lock. This is a SecureRAM ProLogic. I got it in the chrome. So the first thing you want to do is inside your little bag of screws, you have 2 screws for the front faceplate. These here, see how they have a like an edge or like a lip on them? We're going to put them in the top. And then this one. They seem like they feel like that they don't go in right, but they do. Then we'll go ahead and tighten them down. Then you want to take the battery container, which is this little, hit this little lock, lift it all the way up, and pull the battery holder out. One thing I found out about this is you need to be careful when you put it back in. If you, number one, you can only put it in one way. Won't let you put it in backwards. But if you rock it too far towards the back, towards the door, it will get caught on those springs. Those 2 springs are the battery connections. So you need to make sure that you have it flush against the back of the lock so that the springs go inside the holder so that they make contact with the battery. If not, and it's not lined up, because you can see it actually closes. If you don't have it lined up right and those springs are compressed, it'll go in, but then you'll have those springs bent. Won't work. So just make sure you, when you put it in right. So you have to take it out now. Then they want you to take 2 inches of this cable and push it into the body of the lock, of the locking housing. Then you take the wire and you feed it all the way through. I want to make sure that it's straight. Make sure the wire is straight. Feed it through, just like that. Make sure the lock is upright. Make sure you're not getting it tangled on anything. And then it should fit into those the holes in the back. Let me show you that real quick. So you have kind of like when you hang a picture, you have a hole there, and then you have this notch up here. That's the top one, that's the bottom one. Feed the cable through. And since this lock is used by Lincoln, I didn't have to change anything when it comes to putting these screws in. Now line it up. Get it lined back up here. Come on, where are you? There you are. Like that, and then push down. You hear it snap into place. That's all there is to the front. My dial's in place. Now I got to get back to the back. All right, here's my cable. Now I have a little extra room because I tucked the 2 inches in, so if I need to. So, next up. Here's the back of your lock. You want to make sure that these 2 screws are on the outside. There's 2 open screws here, and you never want to open this. Opening the lock container can void the warranty. So, we also have this notch in the back. We want to make sure that the cable tucks into that notch. So when we put this in, it sits flat like that. Then we take our screws. We have 3 of them. They should line up. Don't tighten it down all the way. Just line it up. Get this one here. here. Now go ahead and tighten it down. Make sure that this cable moves. Make sure you can wiggle it up and down and make sure that it's not being pinched. There you go. See, I can still move it. And that's it with that. That's in place. So now, the next part is your relocker plate. This comes where you can go ahead and plug this in. This can go ahead and plug in. Turns to where the clip is on the other side. There you go. Leave it just like that. This is the relocker plate. You have 2 screws here. Take them out. Here's the other one. And in the bag, it came with 2 washers. So put the washer on the screw. Line your relocker plate like this. They give you a way to hook it up. Usually the 2 outside seem to work. The relocker plate that they give you is kind of really flimsy in my opinion. But what they give you. Make sure, now it only fits one way, so grab the other screw, the other washer. Go ahead and put this in. Tighten it down. But actually, now that I think about it, you don't want a really, really heavy duty relocker. So then you re-engage your relocker by putting it back into the hole and having it sit on this piece of metal. Now we're done installation. Now what we got to do is we have to set the lock. So I'm going to test everything before I close everything up. I'm going to test it with the existing combo, which should be, it's a master combo, 111, 111 is what it comes with. So let's move to the front. All right. So it's funny, when you get the directions for this, one of the very first things it says, as in things that it says you need to do, it says, warranty notices. Do not remove back cover, which I told you, don't remove that back cover. Any modification lock will void the warranty. Use a 9-volt battery only. Recommend Energy Duracell, but they give you this with the lock. You'd figure they'd give you a Duracell Energizer, right? Energizer Duracell. To avoid damage to the 4-wire connector. Pinch the lock tab when disconnecting or connecting. There's a little locking tab on the connector. You make sure you pinch it when you disconnect it. It usually snaps into place when you connect it. But so they give you a good job of directions. But if you're not familiar with locks, you know, there's some things that they say that, you know, if you're not familiar with, like for instance, re-engaging the relocker. I showed you what that means. So now we've got everything engaged, everything checked. We're going to put the battery in place. Take the battery, and it comes with a little cover. Take the little cover off. And then you can see that there's a big opening and a small opening, just like your battery. Put it in like it's supposed to. Now, like I said, you want to stick it up inside here, and you want to make sure that you're going, whoops, got it backwards. Make sure that's open. Goes like that. Make sure that you don't pull it towards you. Keep it as level as possible when you stick it in. Put it in and then push the tab locked. Now, we'll follow directions with this because I've never done this before. Install the battery, slide it up. I think and that turns it on. Link with lock OK. So we're locked. There we go. It'll open, and after about, I don't know, 3 to 5 seconds, you'll hear it lock back up. When we put the case back on, or the back door panel, you might not hear it. But when you close it, you'll hear a click. That locks it. I don't know if you could hear that. That's it closing back up. It's pretty quiet. I'm really impressed. A lot of them make a loud click, and they literally throw the bolt in. They use, what do you call those? Not a servo, like a magneto that throws it up and then throws it back down. That's it. So, we're all installed. Relocker's engaged. Just got to put the back panel on and I can go ahead and close it. Now I can access my safe fast without a dial. Now that dial did have a key, but I don't carry the key with me. So there you go. That's installing a SecureRAM ProLogic electronic lock, replacing a mechanical S&G lock on a Liberty Lincoln safe. You have any questions, drop them down below or subscribe. Talk to y'all later.